Hello, YouTubers. Easy Street Preacher here in Denver, and what lovely weather we're having.
Yeah, sorry about that. This is what we would get in November, I suppose.
I'll give you a shot. Yeah, blizzard-like conditions.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas around here.
So I'm back here with Skitzefrenyic Mitch.
Hello.
For the rematch.
Yes.
I think you'll be very happy to know there's no bean boozle this time.
Yes, no puke beans anymore.
Actually, what we're going to do here is, besides having some lunch, is we're going to premiere the new training montage. So if you're watching this, you've either already seen it or it's coming up. So you'll get to enjoy that. And those of you on Facebook, you actually got to see it, you know, as it happened. And yeah, I'm just going to hang out here today and might do some preaching, might do some dialogue. Dialogue's very important. And I did bring a gift. Actually, I'm going to wait for the gift. I'm actually going to cut away from this. I'm going to wait for the gift till after the montage. We're getting drinks.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we're going to order right now. So. Okay, so we had to order food there because that's very important to me. And we need healthy today. I didn't eat healthy yesterday. You know, you get in late, all you want to do is call Papa John's and see what he's got for you. Anyway, we're going to watch this premiere. And like I said, those of you on Facebook already saw it. And you may have already saw it if you're watching this on YouTube. But we're going to cut away from that in a little bit. So I'm going to sign out for now. Okay, EC Street Preacher, I'm back here now. We've just watched the training montage, and it was given 9 out of 5 stars, which isn't possible, but that does convey the message that he really liked it. And I have a gift now for Skitzefrenyic Mitch. I just wanted to get this on camera. You notice at the beginning there's a photo of the flying spaghetti monster.
On the mirror, yeah.
That I'd given, I actually asked Becky to make a picture for me.
Mm-hmm.
And what you just saw at the end was a mock-up. It wasn't the actual picture. So what I have done is, and don't sell this on eBay till I'm in Portland, but I have framed it, and it says to Mitch from EC Rebecca. And her nickname at school is Potato.
Oh.
So she wanted to put that on there. So, well, you know, if you got enough room, put it on there. But that is a gift for you.
This is lovely.
Yes.
That is so nice. Thank you very much, Potato. This is quite lovely. So you didn't tear up the original. You made a copy.
I made a copy.
And you gave me the original. That's lovely. And it's on My Little Pony.
Yes, drawing paper.
That's very good. That is very good. Well, I'm sorry that I made your family draw my deity, but it is lovely. It is lovely, and this frame is quite wonderful. Thank you so very much.
All of $4.
And last time you got me a book as well, and I read that, and that was nice. And no, it was very good. Oh, and now
That looks delicious.
Doesn't that look so good?
yeah.
I need some blackened chicken in my life too. What else can I get for you right now?
I think that's it.
Yeah, this will be it.
Thank you so much.
Look at this food here. This is great. Okay. Yeah, this smells as good as it looks, so I'm getting ready to dig in. But
Yeah, too bad you're not here to enjoy this with us.
so I'll sign out for now. Whoa, EC Grandma.
You got another one, EC. Let's go train. What's going on, EC?
I can't remember the first time. I can still smell the canned dog food on his breath.
The way you did that interview reminded me of me when I was in my prime.
At least you had a prime.
this train, you got to go into beast mode.
Yeah.
Are you ready for beast mode?
Yeah.
Are you ready for beast mode?
Yeah.
Let's go! Go. Down. Up. Down. Wait, you gotta drink it.
Eating, drinking, isn't it the same thing?
You got to drink it.
Okay, I'll drink it.
Take 5. Go. Come on. You can do it. You can do it.
Yeah! 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 Yeah!
He's only 7 years old.
Yo!
Stop it and get in there.
Yo! Okay, hello there, YouTubers. Easy Street Preacher here. And probably to speak up a little bit louder than usual because the microphone's all the way in the back.
Yeah.
But here with Skitzefrenyic Mitch.
Hello.
We're going to do another discussion today and on certain issues. And no disgusting beans this time. So I'll go and let you kick it off.
Unfortunately, you got no good beans either. So the good
No
ones
beans
were
at all.
delicious. Yeah, 0 beans. Here it is. Here's my notes. Notes. Hat. I think I got it. All right. More questions. Round 2.
Yes.
You were preparing pretty hard for this, as you should, because I've got some very, very interesting things on here. One of them is you have been working on your YouTube channel, and you've been broadcasting a live stream on Facebook. Is that right? How
Yes.
can you do that?
I do that about once a week, you know, and tied in with the Pure Gospel Fellowship. You know, I'll do that on Facebook Live.
How's that going? Is it being how's it being received?
I mean, kind of hit and miss. Of course, the one where I talked about mental illness,
Uh-huh.
that one That one got a lot of views.
When was that?
That was a few weeks back.
Okay.
So sometime last month. They
So-
said that caused quite a stir.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't see that one. What were the most comments about? Were they in agreement with what you had preached, or were they sort of
Most were supportive,
cool?
but there was someone who saw that as an opportunity to I don't know, strike back at me. So I was investigated because of that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I don't harbor any ill will for that, you know.
Oh,
I talked to the inspector, and you know he was cool, you know. And, I just said, you know, whatever y'all want to do, you know, ask questions or whatever. You know, I just reassured them.
And you posted that you streamed that live to Facebook, and then did you post it to YouTube as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's on my YouTube channel.
What is so how? What you're just Easy Street Preacher on Facebook? I don't think I have you yet on Facebook. Where should we look you up for the
I'll Philip Brown, you'll find.
Philip Brown? Okay,
It'll be the same picture though as my YouTube channel.
gotcha. All right. Do you have any questions as well, or I'll just interview you?
Yeah,
if you
I'll
want.
just do a few here.
Yeah.
I'm not inside the movement or anything.
Mhm.
It seems to me, and you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like almost like the Pastafarian religion is sort of like losing steam, and I don't know if that's something I'm just not seeing, or if that's something that's happening, and you know, and if there's been any steps taken about that.
Yeah, I think it's lost steam. I think is what it is, because I found it a couple years ago, about 3 years ago. I stumbled across it, and I hadn't heard of what Bobby Henderson had done. He started in 2005 with a letter to the Kansas State School Board, and so that's when Pastafarian really started. It's 2005, and then it was big-ish. It was for a while, and then there was a lot of online discussion about it in forums and stuff like that. And then they published, or practically published, a thing they called the Loose Cannon in 2010, and since then it seemed to just sort of take a nap. And there's a lot of movements that are similar to the Pastafarian thing that happened before that also did that. Like there's the Church of the Subgenius from the 80s, and they had some success in the early 80s, and then they just sort of seemed to simmer down to a low heat. And the Church of Satan is still active, but they were a bit more active previously. So I think that is the case, that it sort of had a moment from 2005 to 2010, and then it just sort of fell down, or I don't know, took a nap, I guess. But I think that recently, and I want to take all the credit for this because I'm sure it's me doing it. No, but recently a couple people have found it, and myself and a fellow in Cincinnati is doing some work, and so I think there's I'm not really calling it a resurgence, but like another wave of sort of these ideas, and I think putting them in the Pastafarian framework is still useful. I think the idea of Pastafarianism is still it still has some communication in it. But yeah, that first wave is petered out, and most of those people online, and when I talk to them, like in Facebook and forums and stuff, they're not into what I'm doing. It's a lot of, we don't push our religion on people. Why are you out in the street? Why are you knocking on doors? We're not supposed to be doing this. And so I get a lot of pushback from like first wave Pastafarians. But I think the ideas, because around the world it's still happening. There's a guy in Germany who's pushing to get street signs with meeting times on them, because that's a normal thing out there, is the local churches will have a church this way on the street sign, church over there, meetings from 10 to 12 on Sundays. And so he's pushing for one of those, and he's doing that currently. You can find him on Facebook. There's recently, a couple of years ago, there was a wedding in New Zealand, and a lot of people are doing the colander thing. So maybe those very sort of loud forumites are tired of it, but I think there's a next sort of wave that's building, especially with things like the religious task force happening, and I think there's space for another wave of Pastafarianism. But yeah, the feeling of it's dead. This is an old joke. Why are you still doing this? Doing this is there, and the reason that I wouldn't, because I can be skeptical of religion on my own and just go out there and preaching whatever I want without referencing flying spaghetti monster. But I think tying it to sort of a larger group lends it some credence what I'm doing. So that's why I sort of picked it up. But I meet people with Pastafarian tattoos and things like that. So it's not as, maybe it's not as big as it was, or it's not as loud as it was, but I think it's still sort of there happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Oh, and I'm drinking lots of water because cold air is dry, and I was on the airplane yesterday. I'll be on the airplane tomorrow, so I got to hydrate.
Also, altitude is very. If you find yourself getting headaches, it's the altitude. Hydration really helps with that. We were talking about. You were just preaching in front of a dispensary. Go check the link down below to see that video. But you were preaching against marijuana. Can we talk about that a little bit? Because we just had an election, and another state just voted
Michigan,
for Michigan. Just put it on it. I think that's 10 out of 50. And this echoes a lot of what happened in a century ago, the Prohibition. Sort of America came together and said, this alcohol is really sort of not something we need to be allowing so publicly, and then it switched back. Do you think it's worthy of an amendment? Do you think that there should be movement and pushback against the recreational marijuana movement that's happening?
I think there should be at least more openness about the medical effects of marijuana, because we have alcohol legal, but you got warnings on alcohol, and they put them on there. I think you should have the same thing for marijuana, because there's just people out there saying, well, it's just like cigarettes, and it might not be the best thing for you, but I mean, you hear the stories about the emergency rooms and people in there scromming, and it's directly from marijuana use. And like this state in Washington, I mean, the emergency rooms are full of them. Where they've legalized it for recreational use. And I talk very often that they can't keep up with the side effects, just short term. You don't know long term. I mean, that's something you should have out there. There should be people saying, well, look, this could happen to you. This could happen to you. If you take this sort of thing. If you do this sort of thing. And the arguments made, well, God made marijuana, and shouldn't we use that if it's something that God made? But there is actually a whole, there's industrial hemp, which if you dried it and smoked it, it would make you violently ill. But industrial hemp, the cannabis plant has a long fiber. You can make all kinds of things, and like paper and rope and that sort of thing. And you can actually breed it to where it has very low or almost non-existent levels of TCH in it. So that's I think there should be more openness about it.
Do you think legally where we're headed is okay, just as long as we label it correctly? Warnings, we get more serious about the warnings, because like tobacco, that's just covered, right? And especially in other countries as well. There's just like pictures of, like I remember in New Zealand, like each box had like half of the box was dedicated to the idea of this is going to kill you, and like they'd have pictures of like tracheal sort of ideas. So that's cool. So we did just have this election. Did you vote in this election? Are you a voter?
Yes, I did.
Cool. So you participate in the governance of this country. You feel, as an American, you don't feel, because I know that there are some
Yeah,
sects.
yeah, government's not.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be involved in government. Yeah.
But do you feel that as Americans, voting is something that we should do, or should we just let that happen? Let the secular people do that, or that faithful people should get out and vote and decide who their representatives are?
Well, I believe it's a right to us, just the same as freedom of speech and freedom of religion and those sort of things. I believe that's just another right along with that, and I believe we should participate, and we should vote, people whose issues are like ours, and you can't really complain if you sit out, and then someone gets in that you don't like, and they start taking your freedoms away. I mean, it's not like it's saying, well, what happened here,
Yeah. So you vote at least just to earn another year of complaining?
Well, I try not to complain. So.
I don't try not to. I think complaining is very helpful. But yeah. In this last election, Alabama decided to vote for amending their state constitution so that they can put a Ten Commandments monument in front of like a courthouse or a state building. What do you feel about that idea?
Well, I mean, if they want to put it there, I mean, and the people vote for it, I think they should have that right. I mean, if that's what they want to do, I mean, I don't really live by the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
New Testament, Jesus said, love the Lord. He gave us two. He said all the law and the prophets is in these two commandments. So those are the ones I'm more focused on rather than the Ten Commandments. But I mean, if that's what they want to do, if they put it up to a vote and people vote for it, I think it should be there, and not just a few people that say, well, we don't think it should be there, and somehow they're, they do whatever they do,
What about just talking politically in elections? Well, let's talk about tomorrow is Veterans Day. Is that right?
Oh yeah. Today is Veterans Day,
Today
and
is.
I want to give a shout out to all my fellow veterans out there. Freedom's not free, and your service is definitely appreciated.
And you served?
Yes.
What was your?
I was
service?
with the Army.
Okay. What years, if you don't mind?
It's 92 to 2000, so
Okay.
I survived the Clinton years.
That was so. Desert Storm was over.
Yeah, I was between them.
Okay.
Yeah. The first one was already over, and it was before the second.
Before 9/11. And all right. Well, thank you very much for your service. I haven't served, but my family, the Webbs have been in America since Revolution. We fought in, I believe, Ticonderoga, and so we've been around, and yeah, it's a very delicate idea, war in the name of good, but I mean, it's hard to argue against what we did in World War II. Like there's definitely a time for a lot of these things. So thank you very much for your service, and of course to all the veterans out there. What else is happening this week? Well, how much should a person's religion and a person's politics, how can they be separate? Can they be separate ideas? Can we have a religion and then have a political thought, or are they just always going to intermix?
Well, I mean that's the way I vote, is based on my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm pro-life, and I'm against gay marriage, and just so I'm going to look for a candidate that has ideas like mine. So I mean, there's not really I mean, my faith is probably, I mean, that's like the number one in my life, So everything's kind of with that.
I'm similar. I don't find that my politics and my religion are separable. I find that they're both sort of based in this idea of what we think morality should be, and I don't think anyone can vote except I don't think there's a way to vote except for the way that your morality tells you to. If you were to change America's government to a more godly or spiritual sort of thing, what would you change about the government to make it more in line with the way that maybe God would govern? Like, because Christ calls himself, or the Old Testament calls him the King of Kings, right? Like, I don't know if Christ ever wore that title, but it's definitely an Old Testament idea. This Ezekiel, right, is King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and he shall reign forever and ever, things like that. Do you think that we should be a Christian nation? We should call ourselves a Christian nation and govern more in that sort of vein?
Well, I think the founding fathers got it wrong. They were Christians, and they did establish us as a Christian. I don't believe we're a Christian nation anymore. I believe we've gone. They call it postmodern now, and I think that's where we're at. But they were on to something when they had the checks and balances, and when they did the Constitution. I mean, they were on to something there. Less government and checks and balances between the branches, and I mean, they would be horrified at some of the things that are going on today. It's like this isn't what we wanted. I mean, some people might be tempted to say, well, we just need to say, Christianity, and that should be it. If you want to be Muslim or another religion, you need to get out of America. I don't believe that at all. I believe they were on to something when they did freedom of religion, because when the government gets involved in that, okay, what kind of doctrine? You can say you're a Christian nation, that's fine, but if you say we're going to be exclusively Christian, okay, well, what about the doctrine of the Trinity? The government needs to decide on that. The government needs to decide on, all these other issues that are discussed, debated. Not just that, And so I think they were on to something when they said, okay, worship God the way you want to, and freedom of speech, which I mean, it's kind of obvious, from the Constitution, Bill of Rights. They were talking about religious and political speech, and not just, I should be able to say F you to everybody, I could run into. So it's obvious they were talking about religious and political speech. They said, well, we're going to make that free, Congress shall make no law and that sort of thing, and freedom to assemble peacefully. I mean, they were on to something there. I mean, even with the right to bear arms, they were on to something there. I mean, the first rule of establishing a totalitarian regime is you got to take the guns away from the people, because the people, once you have the guns, which that's all gun control is. It'd be one thing if they said, "Hey, we want to get rid of all guns."
Right.
But the leaders of the gun control movement aren't like that. If we want to have all the guns.
Right.
So, because then they can, what can they not do?
Right.
So I believe the founding fathers were on to something when they established this nation. I believe one thing that they constantly warned about, though, is they said, this form of government won't work without morality. And you see a lot of the founding fathers saying that. If morality goes out the window, this government, won't make it. And I think that's what we're seeing today.
Is that generally we're an amoral voting bloc, and so we're getting sort of amoral governments, and the governments should be moral, should reflect the morality of the people?
I think that's why we're seeing things like, the Supreme Court making laws. You know, they're not supposed to make laws. They're supposed to judge them. You know,
Right.
they're supposed to interpret it. But now you've got to make them laws. You know.
Yeah. No, I don't recall the case where that really sort of solidified, but I don't recall when that happened. But yeah, it's very easy to be here in the present and think that this is how it's always been, right? This is the system that's set up, and in reality, it just sort of has modified itself over these century and a half that we've been here. So you're traveling right now. You're traveling to the coast, the west coast, up to Portland to preach up there for a holiday, for an event, or is it?
I believe for a couple of days I'll be near Salem. I don't think I'll be near Portland.
Oh,
I think I'll be near Salem at Oregon State.
okay,
I don't know if it's close to Portland or Salem. I know it's near one. I think it's Salem.
okay.
But yeah, I'm gonna be at Oregon State for a couple of days, and then doing the Justin Timberlake concert in Portland. So yeah, we'll be doing some Portland preaching.
That's cool. That's cool. So do check that out. Where else have you preached recently with Lonnie Mathern down in New Orleans? How did that go?
That was really a strange set of circumstances because my wife had gone there. She's got family there, and she was visiting them. And there was this big thing that happened last time she went. She wanted to carry lots of packages with her because that's the thing in New Orleans. You know, you go visit them, they're going to give you lots of seafood to bring back. So, and they wouldn't let them on the plane. It was a big thing like that. And so I really got to thinking about that and said, you know, I'm here, I'm alone. I said, but I have one of those weekends off, so I got like 3 days off. I said, you know, I could probably drive down there and preach and do some kind of a thing with that. And you know, I said, well, you know, you can get your seafood and just put it on in my car. So I'll come down there and get it and then take it back. So that's how that worked out. So yeah, I mean, you know, then I got to preaching a couple nights, and boy, it was hot out there. I mean, they really, you know, they didn't really like the preaching out there.
Yeah.
One in particular, he came at us both nights.
You preached on just right downtown in the sort of Canal Street area, is that right?
Yeah, near Bourbon, yeah.
Bourbon Street?
In that area, yeah.
So you had someone come back the second night to continue his... that's cool. Do you get that much in Carolina where you are? People coming back to continue their...
I've had a few, but normally they're like positive though.
Yeah.
It's like somebody hears me and then they'll come back again. You know. Yeah, so you know, I didn't like think about what you've been saying, that sort of thing. The weird thing is, when I came back from New Orleans, I've been preaching in Raleigh over the summer. Because Greenville, when the college isn't open, there's nothing going on. I mean, it's nothing going on down there. I mean, that town is the college.
Right.
So I went to Raleigh because, you know, it's a bigger town, and I found a place with a lot of foot traffic. And I had drunk, acting almost just like the guy in New Orleans the first night I came back and was preaching in Raleigh. I was like, what, are these people following me or something?
But now you're prepared, so you're ready for them. Do you find that your town is getting used to you, that you're becoming a sort of, that the cops are aware of you, or that the people sort of remember you, or is it,
Oh, yeah.
yeah? So you're becoming a fixture in your local area? People expect you out there on the weekends?
Yeah, particularly in Greenville. Because, you know, I had this big idea of dressing up and making myself up as the devil.
For Halloween? I saw that.
Yeah.
That's a very good one.
And coming out with the red hot candy.
You're right, the hot balls.
Yeah, I had the hot balls.
Right, hilarious.
And I'm thinking, well, you know, I'm going to get all these people coming up. You know, they're going to notice my costume and how I'm dressed up, and I'm giving out free candy, and, you know, it just didn't happen, you know.
Yeah.
They saw the sign, they knew who I was, they knew what I was all about. I did have a few decent interactions, but, you know, I was thinking, you know, I was thinking I'd be swamped, you know. But no, it didn't work out, so.
So you stream weekly to Facebook? Sort of like a. I saw one recently where you did talked about Song of Solomon, which I found to be very bold, very.
Yeah, I might get some pushback from that.
Yeah, have you got any yet? Has anybody?
Not yet, but I know there will be. I know very prominent preachers that don't agree with that.
There's some things that you said in there that are easy to disagree with. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I'm saying it's quite common to hear opinions that aren't in line with what you said. For example, you said that, I believe you said that oral sex is permissible inside of marriage if both parties are into it. That sort of pressure. Pressure
no pressure
would be a problem, but in a marriage, if it's sort of agreed upon and both parties are interested, that it's not a problem. And I of course agree with you, but I can see how that's easily disagreed with. It's very easy to sort of have these black and white ideas and say, no, all of this is off, just sort of missionary, and that's all we're doing. And then you also preached against the idea of that sex should only be used in procreative purposes. So your preaching is very bold on this subject, and you expect pushback. You're saying?
I think there will be. I think because certain people haven't seen it, and it's not a very widely watched thing. I mean, a lot of people don't watch it. A fair number of people watch it on Facebook. Actually, I actually have more people watching it on Facebook than YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But I know eventually that there'll be some pushback from that because it's a subject I stay away from when I'm street preaching, and usually somebody else will jump in. I just let them say what they want to say because I mean I don't want it to be like if I say okay and then there'll be a discussion between me and the preacher instead of preaching going on what you believe this this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't believe the Bible really has that sort of message that, sex between your wife should only be for procreation.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
The message I see in the Bible is this is a gift from God to establish a bond between two people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way, that's how I read Scripture.
Mm-hmm. And you're not afraid to say it either, not on the street, not while you're preaching, but as a sort of.
Well, I had been avoiding the issue for a while, but there were enough people asking to where, I felt like it was time to say something, put myself out there.
Cool. So the last time we spoke, I asked you about some of your influences, preaching influences. You spoke of Reuben Israel and Jesse Morrell, among others. And but they're out in Hawaii right now. They're out preaching there.
Oh yeah.
Did you bump into them in New Orleans? Were they down there? Were they close to when you were there, or? I think they did Southern Decadence, and that was near about the time I was there.
Yeah. But I didn't go to Southern Decadence.
So have you met either of them? Have you been able to preach with them yet?
I have preached with Reuben.
Yeah.
I preached with him at Mardi Gras, and then last month in Atlanta.
Oh, cool.
So.
And you travel around. You preached in 10 states in about 2 years.
Maybe about 10 states.
And
fair number.
This is a very expensive hobby. You fund it yourself, correct? If you were to ballpark it, how deep into this are you financially? Would you say?
Somewhere in the thousands.
Yeah.
So, you got equipment, you got gas, you got plane tickets, hotels, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's very very expensive, and the gear.
Yeah, you got the gear, you got the clothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you get it all from? One website? Can we put the link to the website down there where they can get shirts?
Oh, you might be able to do that. I don't know. One of them I do is preaching gear, and the other one, I actually met the guy who ran it, is Shirts That Speak, and that's another place I get
preaching
my
gear
from.
Shirts That Speak. Okay. And the sandwich sign you got from Shreds at Speed.
That might have been preaching gear.
Okay.
I don't think they did those.
Cool. And you don't use handouts very much, is that right?
Tracks, yeah.
Tracks, you don't.
I just, I used to have a track ministry, and I just don't know. I mean, it's just something I haven't felt like I should do right now.
Mm.
I mean, I have preached with other people, and they hand out tracks.
Mm.
So I mean, there's certainly track given. It's not something that I felt like. I mean, probably at some point I will, but it's just not something I feel like. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like something I should do right now.
How is your relationship with law enforcement coming along? Is it developing? Or are they becoming aware of you, and are they treating you a certain way, and how about your own sort of understanding of what the First Amendment allows, and maybe how much you take of that? Is your relationship with law enforcement becoming strained at all?
You got both extremes. I've preached in Raleigh, and I've had police escorts. The lieutenant will say, I want a policeman to be right beside this guy while he's preaching. And, in Raleigh, they let me have a bullhorn. They said, that's still under review, so if you want to use your bullhorn, we can't really say anything about it. And the same thing with my sign, So as far as places like Raleigh and Greenville was kind of hit and miss. At one time, they didn't like me yelling. They didn't want me to say certain words, and I was not cool with that at all. But lately, it's gotten to like, well, as long as you're not using some kind of battery-operated, some kind of electric voice amplification, just do your thing, that sort of thing. Then you got in New Orleans where, we almost got arrested for complaining about that drunk that was throwing stuff at us and, threatening to kill us. So, I mean, I get both extremes.
Is that one on video, that drunk guy? So check the links for that. Check down there for the link to that stuff.
And I could have done a few lawsuits by now. I could have done like 3 or 4 already. But my thing is, I'm not doing this to get money. I'm doing this to preach. So I'll call the police department.
Yeah.
And say, well, look, here's what happened. And I'll give them a chance to make it right. And a few times they did. So, but that's my go-to right there. Is I'm gonna go and speak, and I'll talk to policemen out on the street and say, look, I want to speak to your supervisor, So I'll try to get to some point, maybe I have to give a little, but I'm just out there to preach, I'm not out there to, make lawsuits.
Right. Because the law enforcement does worry about that some of us, that there's sort of a disingenuous sort of idea that we're going from place to place trying to find a sort of someone who would tell you not to when you can, so that you have a lawsuit. And yeah, I don't find that to be very fun or entertaining either. So the second coming of Christ is an idea that we've been ruminating over for a few thousand years, and no man knows the hour, no man knows the day, things like this. But if you were to guess or guesstimate, do you think that we're going to see the year 3000 as a planet? Do you think we'll get to 2500? What do you think? When do you think it will all wind up about?
I mean, you do see signs today, but I mean, you've seen signs since the one concrete sign Christ gave was when Israel became a country again. So that was a while back. And you've got the mention of the mark in Revelation. There are people being chipped today.
Right.
It's not involuntary. They're not saying yet, take the chip or we'll cut your head off. But I mean, we've been warned about that. One thing is we just don't have a lot of time left, period. The magnetic fields are decaying. We have about 2,000 years left before the magnetic field around the Earth can't hold back the sun's radiation. So, you know, it will be in the next 2,000 years, I believe, because, I mean, there won't be a planet then.
Right. So you think, so as far as a race or just an animal, you think that the Earth won't be able to support us by the about 4,000 that the human sort of species
I mean, yeah, like I say, they're holding back the sun's radiation right now.
Right.
But when they decay and they're letting radiation come through, yeah, there won't be any more light.
Because that's what the borealis is, right? The aurora borealis is the radiation bending through the magnetic fields and creating these lights. And so we're still a few generations away, though, eh? So we should be planning for our grandchildren's weddings and things like that. Still time for that.
Well, I kind of believe in you know, be ready. Certainly don't. I mean, because you know, someone could say, well, I can prove that Christ isn't going to come back for 200 years. And somebody could think about that and say, well, you know, okay, I'll just kind of do my own thing for a while. And, you know, next day they get in a car accident. You know,
Right.
I believe in being ready.
Personally.
Yeah, right now.
Right.
Yeah.
For your own personal moving on to the next thing. I find it interesting that nobody's calling 2033 as nobody's predicted that, right? Like, wouldn't that's 2,000 years after the death of Christ? Wouldn't that be?
You might be
a nice
throwing it out
reference?
there. Someone might be watching and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, there we go."
That's the one. That's yeah. All right. Doctrinally, when I was so there's hell, right? The idea of hell, an eternal punishment. How the question I have, and this one is different from the other ones. This is more of a what do you believe about this idea? Because to me it seems that oblivion is a kinder punishment than eternal hellfire. And why? So how can a kind God choose that punishment, eternal punishment, over erasing, right, removing the person from reality? How come that's not the punishment that a loving God would choose? Why must there be eternal hellfire for those who don't receive the reward, the other option? Why is it heaven or hellfire instead of heaven or oblivion?
Yeah, I see that paradigm a lot. You know, people say, well, you know, why would God do that? Somebody would sin and then God would send them to hell. The paradigm produced in the Bible is God gave us free will. And when we sin, you know, we're sort of sending ourselves to hell. But God in His love said, I'm going to give you a way out. You know, I'm going to give you a way that you don't have to go to hell. But, you know, people just kind of twisted that around, so to speak.
Is oblivion an option for anyone living on the planet? Will anyone
Just be erased?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no scripture for it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's either fire or they also mention outer darkness, which I don't see that would be oblivion. I would see that no seeing, no tasting, no hearing, nothing.
And that's worse than hell.
Yeah, I mean, that's eternal.
Eternal torment that just sort of...
Yeah, you see nothing, you hear nothing, you feel nothing, you know, for eternity.
I think that's all the real questions I have. Have you heard about the religious task force a couple months back? You hear anything about that?
I may have, but you might remind me.
Sessions, who recently got moved on, was talking about putting together a religious liberty task force or something. And in the announcement, he mentioned the Masterpiece Cake Shop here in town, about how that would be maybe something that it would help with or look into. if there was a religious liberty task force here in the American states, what would you want them to help with? What sort of religious liberties would you want them to overwatch?
Well, it just seems like things are focused on Christians.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jack Phillips is a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a Christian speaker going to a college, you know, the students will protest them just going there to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So it does seem like there's sort of you know, Christianity is being singled out,
Mm-hmm.
and the liberties are being taken away. You know, when you have laws such as, well, not in this country, but you know, in Canada, you have to call somebody by the gender pronoun they give you, even if it's against your beliefs, you have to do that, or you'll be fined.
Is that right?
And you know, I don't know if you've heard about this, but recently in Austria, someone made a comment about Muhammad being a pedophile, you know, because of his marriage to Aisha.
Right.
And that was upheld. You know, that was upheld that you know, that she was wrong.
Uh-huh.
There was no. They said, you know, you can't talk like that.
Uh-huh.
You know, so you see these things happening. You know, you can't. You know, and it seems focused on Christianity. You know, if you're a Christian, you talk against, you know, something like Islam. You know, I mean, you'll have people protesting and people, you know, calling you an Islamophobe and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, I would like to see, particularly for the Christians, you know, they have some liberty. You know, instead of saying, well, you know, you got to go along with what we say. You know, particularly, you know, if a band and a band come to you and they want you to marry them, you know, you have to do that. You know,
Right.
even though it's against the Bible, that sort of thing. But yeah, I would like to see more. And I think, you know, there's been some things happening. I don't know if Trump, he made the promise that he was going to get rid of the Johnson Amendment.
Yeah, he spoke about that. Yeah.
I don't know if he's done it yet.
I don't believe so.
But yeah, that would be another good step.
And so the Johnson Amendment is, I think, the way I understand it, is basically religious preachers, tax-exempt religious preachers,
Yeah.
cannot endorse a candidate. Is that right? You can talk politically and you can talk about parties and things like that, but you cannot say to your parishioners, "This guy is our guy, go vote for him." Right?
Yeah, you can't endorse a candidate.
That's the amendment, right? That's what Johnson says. Because in my background, I'm a post-Mormon, and they just recently that church came out against the amendment for medical marijuana in that state, and so there were a lot of people that were.
All right. Hey, take care. Good talking to you.
No, not at all. Pardon us. No. It's fine.
No, I don't like him. I'm phobious. Get some ice water.
We have that phobia as well, to be honest. This is why I wear the whole costume here.
Okay.
Not at all. No rush. We're not live streaming or anything. We just edit this all out.
I was going to say, you look familiar. You've done this before.
Yeah, I've been around town for a couple of years.
Oh, Lauren from Ohio.
Oh,
Would you
okay.
have been taped and been...
Well, I posted to YouTube, but I'd be
maybe
surprised
that's
if
it.
you'd seen it. Like,
Okay.
It's a very small viewership at the moment. So the Mormon Church came out against not recreational, medical marijuana in Utah. They were very publicly saying, don't vote for this. And there were a lot of post-Mormons who were calling for their tax exemption to be taken back. But that's the point, is that's not against the law at the moment. You can talk politically, right? From religious pulpit, just as long as you don't endorse a candidate. Is that?
I know for the most part they'll just stay away from politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's what the amendment says. You can't endorse a candidate.
How do you feel about that, Amanda? Do you think that's infringing on free speech, or do you think that is in line with the separation of church and state idea, or
I think that's an infringement. I mean,
Yeah.
they should be free to say what they want to say,
Mhm.
you know, and keep their keep their status. I think they, you know, I mean, this is an amendment that was made, you know, just with Johnson.
right? And so
And, you know, particularly
Johnson's post-war, right?
Yeah,
War-
particularly
World War
when during the founding of our country, you know, the church was a place where people met
II? Uh-huh.
and, you know, had their meetings and that sort of thing.
Right.
So
It was the meeting place. It was the weekly meeting that we would have. Is this church?
yeah,
Right. Most of the time was spent alone on your own property, right? Growing your foods and stuff, and then meeting on the weekends for.
and you know, separation of church and state isn't in the Constitution. It was put forth by Jefferson,
Uh-huh.
and it's just, I mean, the gist of that is there should not be a state religion,
Uh-huh.
but it actually means the opposite. You know, government should not be infringing upon religion,
Right.
and not religion infringing upon government. But there was that statement there that there should not be a state religion,
Uh-huh.
which, you know, we already discussed that, you know, all the problems that would ensue from that.
Right. So the freedom of religion, and some people talk about the freedom from religion. Do you think that either of those statements is more correct, that religion should be free to say what it wants, or that people should be able to be free from religion? Do you think that is an American right? Is that when someone's talking religion that they can just say, I don't receive religious messages and you're infringing upon my rights? It's kind of like we were talking off camera about the idea of people coming into our videos in a public space and saying, I don't want to be filmed, and thinking that statement should be honored when we're in a public space and it's
Yeah.
a public invitation, and so you can be filmed in public.
And we're not doing it for profit either.
Right, and not for profit, yeah. And so, do you think that people saying things like, I should be able to be free from religion, do we have that freedom? Or does the First Amendment, the freedom to speak your mind when you feel it, is that sort of covering that other idea?
Well, I mean, if they don't want to be around that, I mean, you know, I'm out there preaching, I'm not following them.
Right,
You know, they can just walk by.
right.
Or they can go on their own property. You know, I can't film on their property. You know, I can't speak on their property.
Right,
So they can, you know, go on their property and do their thing.
gotcha. I think that's all of my notes. I very much did like your Halloween bit, the way you dress up as
The devil, yeah.
the adversary, Lucifer. That was very good with the, because that's satire, right? And I am a satirist, and I find that sometimes the message is clearer when you're representing the other side. Did you feel like the things that you were the bit? Did you feel the bit sort of flowed and you were able to get into the character and really preach? Because it has sort of a Screwtape's Diary sort of feel to it, right? Like, because that's C.S. Lewis demons talking to each other, right? Talking about how they could better do their job. So I found that to be very, very, very fun. That the Halloween preach that you did that. Did you find any insights while you were doing that, or?
Well, one thing I was very focused on is that the message still go through.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want, you know, people just to think, just stand out there all night and say, well, you know, sin's great, go ahead and do sin, you know, and just do that.
Right.
You know, I had to make sure I threw in the lake of fire part in it.
Connected to the I don't want
And
to be alone.
I want you to be with me in the lake
Right.
of fire.
Yeah, yeah.
So keep your, you know, so you have to make, I had to make sure that it was, you know, it was kind of a reverse preach, but I still had to make sure that message got through.
Uh-huh.
And I think that worked a little too well. Like I said, I was, you know, expecting a lot more interaction than I got, and that sort of thing. But I think they saw that sign and they said, "Oh yeah, it's that guy again." So,
Yeah. Do you have any more questions? Is there anything that you would like to talk about?
I thought of some, but I think it's that thing, when you go to Walmart, you leave and then you think, I should have got that,
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely.
I did want to know. I did want to know because, like I said, I don't see a lot of pastafarian stuff anymore. So I did want to know, where that was at.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think you're right. I think it's pretty dormant at the moment, but I still think there's a section of the population that really resonates with sort of what I'm saying and get it. I think there's a lot of people that just don't get it, don't care, and that's fine. But there are some people who are sort of understanding what I'm saying. I think the message is still resonant. Whereas, I don't know if you know the Church of the Subgenius at all, but that's sort of, it's hard to really get what they're saying and like why. It seems more like just a celebration of debauchery, right? Which is not really what I'm trying to do, right? I'm just trying to talk about how religion influences our lives and how we handle it and what we do with it and sort of the dangers of it. And I think that Pastafarianism is the current sort of still current way to say it. I don't think there's a new framework for this idea. There is the new atheist, but I don't believe that a human can be not spiritual. I don't believe we can be unreligious. I think that's sort of the point, is religion's everywhere. There's always people who are very religious, and so the idea of the solution for this is to be unreligious. I think that's the wrong idea. I think it's to admit that we're religious and to take it in hand and control it. Control our religion so that it doesn't control us, sort of. I think Pastafarian is really the way to say that idea. But thanks for coming on this very snowy November day, Veterans Day, and thank you again for your service. Thanks for coming preaching to Denver, and
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Good, yeah. And like you said, we have different ideas doctrinally, but those don't make us different as we would hope. People are a lot more similar than their divisions sort of suggest, and the conversation I think is very, very, very valuable. I don't know too many forums where opposite ideas are meant to come and converse. I know a lot of forums where opposite ideas are meant to come and fight, but I don't know how productive that idea is. So thanks for coming again, and thanks for thanks for your participation in this conversation that we're having in America today.
Well, one similarity I've seen between us is, and you more so than me, is being entrenched in that sort of community, and then leaving that, because the church I was going to, I had been there 17 years. And when I left, pretty much nobody left with me. My children,
Right.
Sometimes my parents take them there, and I'm not really, I'm not like, don't take them there, that sort of thing. I mean, the way I see it with my old church is, I went out there and I said, look, you got a problem here. Here's your problem.
Right.
And they pretty much said, well, no, we don't have a problem.
Right.
So I just kind of left it at that. I sort of don't mean them any ill will,
Right.
I'm still Facebook friends with some of them there.
Did you lose much relationships when you had to leave? Did you have to end relationships, or did you find that the relationships were ended for you when you moved out?
Well, I mean, to me, it's just that nobody kind of sided with me in leaving. Particularly when it was apparent that they said, well, there's no problem. Because none of the church leaders came out and spoke to me. guy that spoke to me.
Uh-huh.
You know, he's prominent in the church, but he's not like a pastor.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if he's really over any kind of ministry or anything like that. So, yeah, nobody really, you know, said, well, okay, they don't accept this, and you're right, so you know, we got to go to. I mean, nobody. You know. In fact, there are members of my family that wish I'd go back. You know, and I say I can't go back. You know, I took my stand. If I went back, that would be like me saying, okay, well, you were right.
Right.
And I can't do that. You know.
Right.
So, yeah, we are kind of similar in that sense. We saw something wrong, and we said, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter if I'm doing this by myself. You know.
Right.
I've got to do that. That's something I respect. You know.
There's a moment where I thought I could help from the inside, where I thought I could be a member of the community and then still voice my concerns. But I found that it was just voicing the concerns that pushed me out. Sort of just speaking aloud was enough to sort of signal or to single me out as an outsider. It really was enough to define me. But then once I was out, when I realized I was out, it was obviously much more free to be able to express all the ideas and to see more problems that I had with the issue. It's a lot easier to see from the outside.
It is.
Yeah.
If I had to do a whole sermon like that, looking from the outside in, because I noticed that when I got out of that community,
Yeah.
and then I took a look at it from the outside,
Right.
I'm like, wow, it was, because the change was so gradual.
Uh-huh.
I never saw it coming.
Uh-huh.
Because the church I joined at the beginning was not the church I left.
Right.
I mean, they were adamant against sin, and you know, really big on relationship, and you know, expressing how you feel about God the way you want to.
Uh-huh.
Because I would do that, and you know, before I left, I would do that, and sometimes, you know, I would get like email or something saying, you know, you need to tone down, you know, and they do it on the guise of, well, you know, you're just drawing attention to yourself.
Right. Right.
And you know, I didn't. That wasn't like that before, you know, and I just, you know, and then of course, you know, apparel. I mean, you don't go to church dressed in some of these outfits they're doing nowadays. I mean, to church at least, you know. I mean, I'm not with that, you know. And they're sort of like, well, you know, just let the Holy Spirit work on them.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, you know, the Holy Spirit can use us to talk to them, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell them, you know. And I mean, I wasn't against, you know, someone walking in off the street, you know, and maybe not dressed in appropriate attire.
Right.
And telling them, hey, you know, you got to go and change, you know. I'm not against that. I'm against leaders of the church dressing in modest apparel. You know?
Right.
I just don't, you know, I brought the situation, what if you got a new Christian, someone who's just converted, and then you've got these people on stage, what's he going to do?
Yeah.
He's got to like look at the ceiling or something, you know, he doesn't want to fall back into
Right.
his old sins.
Right.
So, yeah, I just saw that, you know, particularly when I got out. That's the one thing that made me leave, was when they had a youth come up and do her thing and on the stage, and there's no way I'd let one of my daughters wear what she was wearing.
Right.
You know, there's no way. I mean, that was very inappropriate, I feel. Especially on a stage that's higher,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Right.
I don't see that. I don't see that. So
Right.
I was so mad I just walked out.
I think they're sort of anxious about us in here.
Oh, okay.
So, but thanks again. Thank you very much. The weather was not exactly what we'd want, but I think we got some good footage out of that.
Yeah.
And and anytime you want to come back, of course, you're more than welcome. And I feel these conversations are valuable and enjoyable and entertaining. So
I do get good feedback from it.
good,
Yeah.
good, yeah. And your YouTube channel has doubled since we've last seen, and so You're doing very well.
Going up, yeah.
You have more subs than videos, which took me a very long time to get to the point where I had more subscribers than videos. Generally, it was I had 100 videos and 10 subscribers, so it's good to be on the other side of that. So yeah, continued success and stay true to what you feel, right? Because we have sort of different ways of expressing that idea of the Holy Ghost and that feeling of revelation, personal revelation, and I think that communicating that as loudly as we can, what we're feeling inside and what we're being shown and taught, is the way forward. I don't think there's a problem with that at all. I think that's the conversation, is how we feel about reality, and I think you're doing great. I like what you're doing. I think there's a lot of people out there who I try to parody that are in there to just fight and tell people they're wrong and things like that. I think that you're not one of those people, and I think that what you're doing is valuable, even if I don't agree with the book you're doing it from. Because there's lots of people I don't agree with their books, but can't call them bad people. So thank you, Easy Street Preacher, again.
Okay.
Thanks for coming by. Keep it up, and we will see you soon. See you. Oh, you know what? I might not have been recording this. Is this on?
Dialed on you?